Finally, we have our answers. These are answers that we've been looking for quite some time. Now we have them. And this is what's going on. So yesterday on Sunday, President Biden said this. Look, my intention, I said to begin with, is that I would run again. But it's just an intention. But it is a firm decision that I rerun again. That remains to be unseen. That is what he said. President Biden is now coming out and saying that he does not know if he would rerun for president again. Now, this is a very big deal, but why? Why is this such a big deal? Well, it has been reported multiple times that congressional Democrats are actually wanting to see somebody else take over for President Biden. And that's what polls are actually telling us the American people want as well. Now, they say this because it has been shown time and time again that President Biden's polling numbers are down. Also, President Biden's promises are blocking Democrats from making some major changes. Now, some promises he's kept, others he has not. And if that wasn't enough, inflation is still up. And Americans blame President Biden and Democrats for that. Now, and I understand Republicans obviously have something to do with inflation as well. Everybody in Congress does. But at this time, the leader is going to get blamed for any inflation that we see. And who's the leader? Well, according to reports, it's President Biden. Now, we see some things on the back end that there's other people pulling the strings. So we're going to see what happens there. Now, why would congressional Democrats not want to see President Biden rerun for office? Why? Well, it has everything to do with the promises that he's made. For instance, the $10,000 in student loan forgiveness. This was a promise he made more than 2 years ago, but he's just now getting to it. And the problem is that this is likely to lead to additional inflationary pressures. And that's something that Democrats don't want to tie themselves to. However, it was a promise that President Biden made, and so now they're just sticking with it. We also know President Biden promised $200 a month for Social Security recipients. This promise has not happened. There's been very little progress on this. And this promise can't happen because of one of his other promises. And that promise President Biden made was nobody making less than $400,000 per year would see a penny more in taxes. Well, that's causing a lot of issues because now Democrats can't get done what they want to get done. And this is perhaps one of the two biggest reasons why Democrats want to see the change in the Oval Office. Number one, President Biden is getting older. And that's a worry that they will always have if the president is fairly old. Former President Donald Trump is, he's getting up there in age as well. So it's one of those questions that can either one of these candidates run the country when they're over 80 years old? And again, we don't know. But one of the big question marks is if President Biden doesn't rerun, then do Democrats now have the ability to raise taxes to people that are making less than $400,000 per year? And this is not just to increase Social Security benefits either. Because yes, Democrats could then come out and say, all right, we're going to raise taxes for anybody making less than $400,000 per year. But that includes if you make over $147,000 per year, up to that $400,000, that kind of gap right there, that is what President Biden says is untouchable. We cannot touch that. That is a problem, especially for Democrats that want to increase Social Security benefits. So, what I thought was just interesting that President Biden decided to come out, or actually last night on September 18th, Sunday, September 18th. Why would he come out and say that he's not certain if he's going to run for president? Again, President Biden chose to announce this 50 days before the midterm elections. That is a major problem. That is a major problem. I think Democrats are probably upset that he decided to do this at that time. Now, let's talk about another potential issue, a major crisis that Americans will blame President Biden for if this does happen, and that is the upcoming tentative agreement vote for railroad workers and the carriers. Now, it was reported last week that a deal was done. President Biden came out and he said that a railroad strike has been averted. But that is not necessarily the case, and a deal could potentially fall apart. Now, reports yesterday indicated that rail workers are set to vote on the tentative agreement. They're set to vote on this coming Thursday morning. After that vote, the votes are going to be tallied. Here's what I can tell you about tallying votes. It is going to take some time. Once the votes are tallied, we will have an answer as to whether or not there will be a potential railroad strike or not. Keep this in mind. If the workers decide to not ratify the new agreement, what would then happen is either the unions, well, this would happen, the unions, the Federal Commission, and the railroads, the carriers, would get back together and try to work out another agreement. We know that's going to happen. But here's the thing. If it doesn't get worked out soon enough, we could see railroad workers go on strike in the meantime. Now, here's what you need to know. If just 1 out of the 12 unions fails to ratify a new contract, we could see up to 125,000 rail workers head towards a strike. But this is what you need to keep in mind. Rail workers are not happy with the tentative agreement that has been put in front of them, and many are considering just walking away. Many say that the language in the agreement is just too vague, and it would allow railroads to continue operating the same way, which is part of the entire problem. Even an organizer from Railroad Workers United said, and I quote, "There's a lot of anger, confusion, and hostility due to workers feeling that the railroads intentionally left most of the new agreement vague." Now, when I read this yesterday, I reached out to a couple people that work for the railroads, and they said one thing, that yes, they have been told that the agreement is very vague. They have been told that there's a lot of missing pieces. Now, I just want to throw this out there. If the language is so vague and it's not clear cut, okay? The problem is the railroad workers can interpret it one way. The railroad carriers will interpret it a different way. And if there's any confusion and they're butting heads there, that will be a problem. And it may not be a problem initially, but I guarantee you once those workers start to ask for days off because they want to go on vacation, or they ask for time off because they need to go to a medical appointment. When they start to do that and the railroad say, sorry, you haven't been approved for that day off, you need to come into work, that is going to turn into a major, major issue. And if we don't see a strike happen now, it gets agreed upon, and then that happens in the future, I guarantee we're going to see some major issues and potentially people just walking away from the job. So there's a lot of stuff happening right now, but again, at least we have some answers. Here's the other thing that we're going to have an answer on this week as well, and that is, what is the Federal Reserve going to do? Are they going to continue raising rates? My expectation is yes. They're going to continue to raise rates. We're at least going to see a 50 basis point rate hike. If not, we will at least see potentially a 75 basis point rate hike. Some say we need to go to 100 or potentially higher. If we see anything over 75 basis points as a rate hike from the Federal Reserve this week, we're going to see the stock market sell off. We're going to see housing crash even further. There's a lot of things happening right now, and here's the one thing I can tell you. Get your money right. Make sure you are cutting your expenses. Eliminate things that you do not need. Okay, that's number one. Number two, make more money. Ask for a raise, ask for more hours, get a side hustle. Do one of those three things, because I guarantee you when you know what hits the fan, SHTF, you want to make sure you are prepared, you got some money in savings, you got some debt paid off, and you will be good to go. All right? So, if If you have any questions whatsoever, please ask your questions down in the comment section below. Again, just want to thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.